Hello and welcome, Boulder Earth families. Thank you all so much for joining our question and answer session tonight. We appreciate you tuning in. My name's Josh. I'm the Executive Director here at Boulder Earth, and I'd also like to introduce Remy Zimmerman. Remy's our program manager. She oversees many of our domestic programs and also oversees our staffing efforts. Say hi, Remy.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Awesome. So Remy and I are going to collaborate here in a brief presentation for about 20 or so minutes. We just want to give you an overview of some commonly asked questions and, give you a little bit of an introduction to Boulder Earth. I know we have a lot of first-time families, especially tuning in tonight. Thank you, by the way, to everybody who has asked some very thoughtful questions during the leading up to the webinar. We've already have those in our queue to answer. But during the webinar, if you have questions, go ahead and type them into that little questions box there. Remy and I are going to take turns answering questions on that or kicking them to the group and answering them for everyone. If your question is really granular or specific to your student, we may choose to answer it just in the questions inbox. And if we don't have time, we may follow up with you afterwards, just in the interest of time. Well, here we are. Summer is coming up really, really fast, and our excitement is running really high. After a long wait, it's almost here. I understand now that we're getting closer, some nerves have crept in along with some excitement for first time, especially parents and students. Please know this is completely normal, and we are here for you. Everybody who's going to be joining us this summer, especially our first time students, is taking a risk, doing something new, stepping out of your comfort zone. That totally comes with the territory. The scariest part is always right before you join us. Many of our students are going to be joining us for a second, third, or even fourth trips. But to our new students especially, we are so excited to meet you for the first time. Boulder Earth is a really unique opportunity, and you're going to have a ton of fun this summer. For those of you that are still getting oriented, at Boulder Earth, we run small group adventure camps. Our trips have between 10 to 13 students on them typically, and 2 Boulder Earth trip leaders. In addition to that, we're doing tons of different activities throughout the trip. Every Boulder Earth trip does some travel as part of the experience. And we're going to be working with some activity-specific specialized guides in addition to our Boulder Earth leaders. We do activities like rock climbing, whitewater rafting, to add some additional staffing, but especially to add some local knowledge and expertise. Your trip this summer is going to focus on adventure, community, and challenge. Boulder Earth is not a vacation and it's not a team tour, and it's going to be fun. That's why we're here. It's summer. Everybody should have fun. That's really the point. But I also hope that we'll be able to challenge you all at different points during the trip. We're going to give you real responsibility, and you're going to have some leadership opportunities, things you're responsible for throughout the course of the trip. But at the end of the day, even more so than adventure, Boulder Earth is always more than the sum of the activities we're doing. At the end of the day, it's really about people and the community that you help create on your trip. Boulder Earth is not an experience we can do to you or for you. It's an experience that we create together in our small group. You should walk away from this experience with hopefully some really close friends, but also with a new perspective, some increased confidence from all the adventures you've done, and most of all, some incredible memories. What you do and where you go with Boulder Earth, all of our trips vary a little bit from each other. Whether you're going to Hawaii or the Grand Canyon or Colorado, or even on one of our far-flung international adventures, but the core Boulder Earth experience is always the same. Before I talk about all the fun stuff and we get into the questions, I want to talk about safety and risk management. Our #1 goal this summer is for everybody to be safe. We can have fun in a field. We can always have fun no matter what we're doing. Nothing we do, no activity, whether it's surfing or whitewater rafting, is so cool, so much fun, so growth oriented and impactful that it's worth the safety of our students or staff. But please know that we do operate in a dynamic environment, and we are partaking in some activities that have inherent risk associated with them. We all know nothing in life is 100% safe. We're about to have an authentic adventure together, and that it does involve some risk. Our goal is to minimize risk without sacrificing the integrity of your experience. Your trip leaders and your activity guides are laser focused on your safety this summer, but safety isn't something your leaders and guides can do to you. We definitely need your help and your buy-in to help keep you safe. When we talk about safety and risk management at Bold Earth, most people understandably think of activities like whitewater rafting and rock climbing, which is totally fair. And those activities do have inherent risk associated with them. But the truth is, at camps and programs like ours, statistically, a lot more accidents and injuries, even minor ones, happen in places like our campsites than rafting or rock climbing. We have to have a mindset of safety and risk management throughout the whole trip, and we need your help. It's a lot easier to be focused on safety when you're doing something that makes you scared. But we're out on a big adventure together, and even small injuries like a twisted ankle have a disproportionate impact than they do at home when you can just lay on the couch and watch TV. That's something that, even though it's small, could disrupt your trip experience. Please know, and this is especially for our students, that we're going to be a little bit conservative when it comes to your safety. This is because, as I mentioned, this is a group experience that everyone's doing together and is far from home. There may be some things you'd like to do during the trip, or even that your parents would let you do at home that you can't do with us. And we just ask for your understanding of that. We have made some promises to your parents that we have to keep. And we also have to trust that all of our students are going to be able to help us follow these rules. This is especially important when we come to activities like free time or even, going to bed at our campgrounds. We do need to have your trust and buy-in for this. Bold Earth is a group experience, and we're always around each other. We don't usually go a lot of places alone. That's for fun, but it's also for safety as well. I know that a lot of our first-time students, but also a lot of our parents are always a little bit nervous about travel. And, adults, we've traveled a lot. We all have travel stories. I want to give a little bit of an overview of flying to Bold Earth, traveling, and some helpful information. Many of our students are flying without parents for the first time. It's a great life skill. There can be a little bit of confusion when you get some emails from the Bold Earth office with some language like being an unaccompanied minor. An unaccompanied minor, really almost all of our students are minors and they're often traveling alone, but an unaccompanied minor is an official airline designation. And not every student is going to be flying as an unaccompanied minor, even if they are a minor. It typically means you're paying an extra fee, and you're usually, depending on the airline, below a certain age, typically under 15, and you have to be accompanied by an airline representative. Sometimes unaccompanied minor is mandatory based on your age and the airline you're flying, and sometimes it's an elective service. So the critical thing is here, if you're an unaccompanied minor, that means a Bold Earth leader, the airline is going to hold you at your gate until a Bold Earth leader arrives. And it's critically important that if we don't know already, that you have let the Bold Earth office know if you are flying as an unaccompanied minor, so we know when and where to meet you. We're going to have students landing from all across the country and sometimes all over the world in a short period of time. And for most of our students who are not flying as an unaccompanied minor, it's pretty easy. You're going to turn your cell phone on when you land, just in case your group leaders are trying to contact you. And you're going to head out, follow the signs to baggage claim. And typically, just as you cross security and head towards baggage claim, you're going to see your Bold Earth trip leaders. They're going to be wearing the cool t-shirt that Remy's wearing, our new t-shirt for this year, huge fan. And you're going to be wearing one too. If you haven't got one already in the mail, we've mailed all of our students Bold Earth t-shirts. We ask that you wear that so you can recognize each other at the airport, and it's really easy to meet up. And also, they look amazing as well. So please wear your Bold Earth t-shirt. If you're an unaccompanied minor, your Bold Earth leader will meet you there. Please know that we're often picking up many students in a short period of time. And there's always a chance that we're a little held up and maybe a few minutes late. There's no reason to panic. Just hang out and we'll come meet you there shortly. So we will have a copy of your flight information. Bold Earth office and your trip leaders are also going to be tracking your flights. Please let us know, though, if there's any major updates, as you may know still before we do, and we want to make sure that we're always up to speed with when and where to meet you. We're going to be waiting for you after you clear security, and we're going to help you get your bags. After that, we are going to ask you to call home. Even if you just talk to your parents, that's great. We'll probably jump on the phone too. We always want to make sure parents are 100% aware, not just of when you've landed safely, but also when all of our students are with us and together, and they know that the trip will have started. That's when cell phones will go away. We always want to make sure parents are in the loop. Excellent. The one thing to know for the start of Boulder Earth trip is it is required that all students arrive healthy for the trip. If your student's having any kind of illness or sick symptoms, we do a quick health screening every time someone joins the trip. So please let us know in advance so we know what to expect. And if there's a reason your trip has to be delayed, we can work with you on that. Communication. These trips are big adventures, and I know especially for our parents who are, following along from home, communication is really, really critical. And Boulder Earth is a tech-free experience, and we want to make sure everyone knows what to expect and feels comfortable with that. So even though you are going to bring your cell phone for travel, it's really essential for travel. Once you call home, the phones are going to go away. Your trip leaders are going to collect them. We're going to have a place we store them, and you will get them back halfway through the trip to make a mid-trip phone call where you'll call home. But for the most part, we really want to be tech-free. So that means, that's a really, really important part of the Boulder Earth experience. First of all, we're in the woods a lot of the time, we're camping, we don't really need our cell phones, and it's great to have a break from them. I'm as addicted to my phone as any person, but it's an incredible privilege to be able to put your phones aside and just be able to be present. You'd be surprised how much of a difference it makes. So please do know that we will have that mid-trip phone call, which is definitely something that's important. Parents, unfortunately, based on the dynamic nature of our trips, we're not always able to schedule those in advance. Sometimes the trip leaders will be able to look ahead and we'll try to give you a shout out through the blog, more on that in a moment. But otherwise, if we're not able to connect at that time, don't worry about it. The trip leaders will have your student try again to make sure that you get a chance to connect. Before the trip, your trip leader is going to reach out to you about 2 days, 24 to 48 hours prior to leaving home. We're going to call, try to get in touch with you, jump on the phone with your parents, and if you're available to, that's great. That's really just to say hello, that we're introducing ourselves, following up on any last minute questions, and having that nice touch point before you start for the trip. Awesome. Now, communication during the trip. I remember, I know I mentioned about the blog. The blog is something that's really, really important because students don't have their phones and we can't be doing texting and phone calls all the time. We do publish a blog. Obviously, we're on an outdoor adventure, so we don't always have great cell service or data. We typically publish a blog every 2 to 3 days, although if the trip is on a 3-day river section, please know the blog will be caught up once the trip leaders are back in cell service. The blog is not actually something that's typically written by the trip leaders. It's actually written by the students. Everybody takes turns writing the blog, and the trip leaders will type that up, send that to the office along with 5 or so photos of the group so everyone's smiling and doing well. And we're going to publish that on our brand new website, Boulder Earth blog. It's almost ready for the summer, and everybody will have a passcode to get into their particular trip. And you'll be able to follow along, see updates, again, usually a blog post every 2 to 3 days and a handful of photos. Unfortunately, the one downside, there is no way to send out email notifications for new blogs. The great thing is it's super easy to access. You can do it from your phone and you can check anytime you'd like. Now, there may be a situation in which case, as a parent, you need to get in touch with the Boulder Earth office. That's totally fine. Obviously, our office will be open during regular business hours, but we also have a special on-call line. 24/7, it's staffed by a director, such as myself, Remy, Haley, or Marin, or Leah, and someone's always there in case there's an emergency. Obviously, if it's a late night call, we do ask that it's an emergency, especially if it's going to be a very late night call. But please know, if it is urgent, there's always someone there to answer your questions or to give you the correct information. Please know this is camp, and in particular, it's an adventure camp. No news is always good news. We are the first to call you with issues. Even if they're small issues, you'll be the first to know. So please do know, no news is good news. You will receive the blog, but if you're not getting a special phone call, that's not at all a bad thing. your trip leaders or the Bold Earth office will reach out anytime there's an issue. Please know that our trip leaders, we ask them to be really focused and present with our students and running the trip, of course. So with that, even though you'll have a cell phone number of one of the trip leaders, we do ask that if you need anything, that the Bold Earth office is your first line of communication. Trip leaders are going to be spending time with your kids, and also they're running the trip. And we really don't want to take them away from that. And they often are sometimes out of cell service, even though they have SAT-enabled communication devices in the case of emergency. So please feel free to reach out to us first, and we can always put you in touch with them. On a small note about communication, we're getting really excited. We're going to be leaving for staff training really soon. So in mid-June, the Bold Earth director team is going to be out in Colorado, camping for almost 10 days with all of our trip leaders, getting to know them, and we'll be a little less accessible. Our admissions manager, Jacqueline, and intern, Caroline, will be there to help answer the phones and emails. But please know if it's a question that's very specific for one of us, there may be a slight delay as we're very focused on providing our trip leaders with the very best training. Remy, that's all I have to say about communication. Do you have anything to add about any of the topics that I just covered before you jump into your topics?
I think you've covered it. Yeah. I might have some things to add later. I'm sorting through some of the questions, but I think you answered most of the questions I saw.
Awesome. Well, I'll jump on answering some questions, Remy, if you want to talk about your absolute favorite, the Bold Earth trip leaders.
I'd love to talk about the Bold Earth trip leaders. So I'm very biased. I think our trip leaders are incredible, and they're a huge part of why we're able to be successful every summer. So they're not just great outdoors people, they're also gifted educators who are really passionate about working with teens. A lot of them spend the year working as educators. We also have trip leaders who work as EMTs. We've had trip leaders who are nurses during the year or therapists, and they kind of plan their year around coming to work for Bold Earth. So I think they're incredible at working with youth, and they're also just really impressive people all around. We have hundreds of applicants every year, and we typically hire around 20 to 25 new applicants. It's always really hard turning people away. We get so many qualified applicants, and we're just really excited about all of our trip leaders. You're going to love them. They're such great role models and mentors, and a little distinction on what they do versus what a guide might do. So our trip leaders are with students throughout the course of the program. And like I said, they're mentors, they're role models, they help move the day along, they really connect with the kids and act as like a supportive role throughout the whole trip. It's not their job to lead our specialized programs. So we hire professional guides for things like whitewater rafting or rock climbing. Our trip leaders are always going to be with the students in everything that they do. But the nice thing about them not being the specialist in some of those more specific activities is they really are there to just focus on supporting students and being a guide, being a mentor, which is amazing. We do have all of our trip leaders this year posted on our website right now. So if you go to our Bold Earth website, go to our trip leaders tab and meet our trip leaders, you can see who is running the trip that your kid will be on, which is really exciting. We do like to put a little caveat. Sometimes we make changes at staff training just to make sure we have the absolute best fit everywhere we can. So if you notice that it looks like someone's leading your trip and that changes, those changes happen every year, and they're always good choices for us. So we just like to mention that so you all know that. But yeah, our trip leaders are incredible. We're really excited to train with them. And in addition to our Bold Earth specific training that has aspects of social emotional learning, some hard skill things, and just a whole slew of fun and exciting camp-like things. All of our leaders have also been trained as wilderness first responders. Every trip has a lifeguard on it. So they have really robust training at the end of all of the things that they get to work on. And we always feel really excited and confident about sending them out into the field with students. Josh, do you have anything to add on trip leaders?
No, sounds great.
Awesome. So moving on to food at Bold Earth. I know food is a big concern for a lot of people. It is for me always too. And food is really important for us on these trips. It plays a special role. So our students are actually doing the meal planning on these programs and then getting to cook together. And it ends up always being a really fun time for connecting and just different people getting to show different skills that they have. I always have the most fun on my trips when I'm in the kitchen with my students. As I'm sure all of you know, teenagers get really hungry. So we always plan to have a ton of food with lots of options. We eat a lot on our trips. We have snacks always accessible. And it's really important to us that nobody is ever hungry on trips. So that's something that we really emphasize in our training with our trip leaders. We'll always check in with students if they mention that they're a little bit pickier and make sure that there's always going to be something for everyone to eat. And yeah, it's a really cool opportunity for the students to kind of step into a different role. We give them some light guidance and then we let them make their meal plans. We make sure that they're thinking about nutrition, so we're not just having cereal and candy at all of our meals. And we'll go over their shopping list before we go to the stores and make sure that we're going to have nice variety, nice balance. We do have lots of fresh food on these trips, actually. We are camping, but we're car camping. Some people might call it glamping. So we have coolers. We try to have, you know, fresh food options every single day. I've never had a trip where a day goes by where I haven't eaten a vegetable and some fruits and something fresh. And we do have meat on our programs, but we do like to also emphasize that we don't cook raw meat for sanitary and health reasons. In terms of our storage with our coolers, it's not super safe to store a bunch of raw meat. So we have meat options every day on our trips for the most part, but we will buy cooked meat. So some of that might be a little less fancy than some folks are used to at home, but I really think our food is amazing and yeah, ends up always just being a really fun, bonding, important part of our trips. Josh, do you have anything to add there?
Food always tastes better when you're camping, even if it's not as great as a restaurant in reality, always tastes better to me.
It is true every time. Great addition. In terms of our camping, so all of our campsites are in the front country for the most part. So we're not backpacking on any of these programs. We're driving to all of our campsites. We'll have our gear with us while we're there. And all of our campgrounds have access to some sort of facility. So these vary based on the trip. It might be, you know, a porta potty at certain campsites. Other campsites might have some really fancy bathrooms with showers and hot water. So there's a nice range on all of our trips. Some of our trips do have multi-day rafting trips. So they'll be camping at different river spots along the way. And the guides that we work with are amazing. They bring a little toilet out with them and a bunch of gear, and we set up a whole kitchen while we're out there, all of our cooking gear. So it will feel pretty cozy, hopefully, for most people. We find that a lot of people have a hard time sleeping outside their very first night, but then they get used to it and ends up loving it. And again, it's just another really cool opportunity to get super close with the group and connect through a unique experience that is hard to access, you know, staying in cabins or staying in hotels or something like that. We do like to stay in beautiful remote places. So as I mentioned, some of our facilities are nicer than others, but we will always have access to some sort of bathroom. And in our more remote areas, it's always nice to get some alone time with our Bold Earth group. We'll definitely be at some other campgrounds where there are other folks around, and that's fun too, but we like being out there when it's a little bit quieter and getting to see the stars and just really enjoy each other's company. At our campgrounds, we will sometimes have showers, but not always. We generally shower every 3 to 4 days on a trip, sometimes more, sometimes less on a river trip, for example. If you're out there for 3 days, we're not going to shower, but they are getting in the river every day. We get in the water a lot on our trips, and we still really emphasize hygiene even when we're not showering. So I always have wet wipes on my trips. I encourage people to bring those if they make them feel more comfortable, and we can find ways to still stay clean even when we're not showering. It tends to be an adjustment for some people, and people can be nervous about it, but it's all part of the experience and we'll all be in it together. So it's not like there's one person not showering and everyone else is. A little bit about our tents. We have really nice tents. I got to stay in one last week and I can fully stand up in it. I'm not the tallest, but there's plenty of room. They're very spacious. So we have 4-person tents. We typically put 3 students in a tent at a time. And as I'm sure all of you have seen on your packing list, students will bring their own sleeping bags and sleeping pads, and we provide the tents. So yeah, like I said, it can be a transition when people are first getting out there, and that first night can be a little less comfortable, but part of what your trip leaders are there for is making sure you have all the information you need to be comfortable. So we'll always talk about staying warm when we're camping, what we should sleep in or not sleep in to help us stay warm and comfortable. And yeah, our trip leaders are there to help people to have all the information they need to feel as good as they can out there. Josh, anything you want to add about camping?
No, I think that's a really great overview. Thanks, Remy. I might jump into packing tips before we open it up to some of our specific questions. How's that?
Sounds great.
Awesome. Packing for a Boulders trip. Always fun and can cause a little bit of stress. We're here to help. If you haven't seen it already, we have a packing list for every trip that is posted in 2 places. It's posted on your Camp in Touch profile, where you'll find a lot of useful information. It's under the Forms and Documents section. Also, it's on every individual trip page on the website under a little tab that just says Flights and Packing, and there's a link to that right there. If you have any really nitty-gritty questions, please drop them in the chat. Remy and I will be happy to help, but I do want to go over a couple of specific things. It can be a lot to take in, not as hard as it seems. These packing lists have sometimes for each individual trip been, in the case of Colorado, for example, been honed over 4 decades. So please follow the packing list. It has everything you need. Emphasis on trying not to overpack or omit items. The thing about overpacking is you're living out of this duffel bag. So every Boulder Earth domestic trip, everybody's gonna have a duffel bag, typically 70 to 100 liters. And also a day pack. And you know, when you're living out of those 2 bags like that, every excess item is something you interact with and have to reorganize almost every single day. And it can actually add a little bit of stress and inconvenience. So it feels like you're adding some, cool stuff, but we do ask that people really try to follow the packing list. Awesome. So another thing about packing is it's easy to overspend on some of this stuff. The outdoor industry has done a really good job making you think that you need only Patagonia. I guess I am wearing Patagonia in full disclosure right here, or brands like Arc'teryx. And for really critical items, sometimes having a good brand or a slightly more expensive item can be merited. But for the most part, a lot of this stuff is available for definitely a little bit cheaper. So a few things that I would say are worth the money. 1, a great pair of boots, hiking shoes or boots. For the trips that you folks are on this summer, boots are not required, but a good pair of waterproof hiking shoes is going to be great. Regardless of if they're hiking boots or hiking shoes, please make sure they're not sneakers. They will get destroyed, they will not have sufficient tread, and they're not going to be as comfortable. They're a lot more likely to have blisters, give you blisters, for example. The most common injury on a Boulders trip is blisters. Please make sure they fit. This is a great item to go in a store like REI, or even better, a local gear shop, and try them on with a salesperson, make sure they fit, and definitely break them in. The other one is a good waterproof rain jacket. Please no ski jackets, insulated jackets, or windbreakers or water resistant. We want waterproof. Doesn't have to be something expensive like Gore-Tex, but definitely a waterproof rain jacket. And rain jackets are one of those things that they can break down over time, or the waterproofing on them. Awesome. The other item is good non-cotton warm layers. At least 1 extra. That's an okay item to have a 1 or so extra, especially if it's not too bulky. We want to make sure that we're able to layer up and be warm. You don't necessarily need a puffy jacket, but a good heavyweight fleece jacket. And it's okay to bring a little bit of cotton stuff, but if all you have is cotton, when cotton gets wet, if it gets wet, it makes you colder, really not as great. So we definitely want some good non-cotton warm insulating items out there. One of the final ones is a sleeping bag. This is actually worth the money, but don't overspend. Synthetic sleeping bags are just fine. You're not having to carry the extra weight on your Boulder Earth trip. And when down, sleeping bags take a little bit more maintenance. They take a little bit more maintenance, and if they get wet, they do not perform particularly well. Synthetic is great, and you can find a good synthetic 20-degree sleeping bag for about $100, $120. No need to overspend. If you already have a down sleeping bag, no worries. Bring it along with a waterproof stuff sack or a trash bag, but no need to overspend. The sleeping pad. The age-old debate, is it going to be a air mattress style, Thermarest style, or should you bring a closed cell foam pad? They each have their merits, but I'll try to keep this brief because I have too many opinions about this kind of stuff. Hold on one second. The foam is a lot easier to interact with. You don't have to blow it up, fold it, really break it down every single day. That being said, a good, not an air mattress like a one you put in your bedroom, but one like a Thermarest or a Neo Air, they are going to be a little bit more comfortable once they're inflated. But just know you are going to have to do a little bit more work each and every day to break that thing out and fold it back away versus a closed cell foam. Awesome. One of the questions or one of the topics that we get a lot of questions is about how do you fit everything into the duffel? This can seem like the most intimidating part of the trip, and the hardest time to do it is getting it on the plane. The reason is there's certain items that don't necessarily have to live in your duffel on the trip that will for the plane. Things like the Crazy Creek folding chair, even your sleeping bag can actually exist outside of your duffel bag. So those are the things that can prove a little bit stressful for folks. A couple quick tips. For the Crazy Creek chair, always put that in the beginning at the bottom of the duffel. You can pack stuff on top of that. If you're really having trouble fitting stuff, sneak your sleeping bag on as a personal item. That's totally fine. And again, you can hold that with you, use it as a pillow on the plane. It's going to have a place at Boulder Earth. Don't worry about that too much. I wouldn't try to strap it on or tie it on to your check bag. The other couple packing tips that I have are bring everything you need for your first day in the day pack with you, even if you don't need it on your plane. A good quick list is a headlamp, a warm layer for the campsite, your rain jacket, your medication, anything you would need for the first night if your bag was delayed by a little bit. Don't have to pack everything, but just the essential items that would be difficult to replace or go without. We get this question a lot too, is does it have to be a duffel? Does it have to be a soft-sided duffel? What about a bag with wheels or a roller bag? We really prefer soft-sided duffels. First of all, they're quite cheap. I just bought a new one for $30 on Amazon, and it's actually great. Bags with wheels can be difficult. They can also be harder to pack in our trailer, and they're sharp, so they're heavy, so they can snack people. We don't really like them as much, especially the hard-sided roller bags. Remy, I don't want to prattle on too much about packing. Any other things that you have before I jump into some of the questions that have already been submitted?
I think you can go ahead and dive into the questions. I've been trying to answer some of them as we go, but hopefully we can, answer what you've answered.
Well, I'll start with some of them that have already been submitted in advance. One quick note that was submitted, thanks to Betsy, who's a veteran Boulder Earth parent. Pro tip, when we're talking about meeting up with folks at the airport, the trip leaders will publish a blog typically 2 days before the start of the trip, running you through airport day in your specific airport, usually giving you a picture of exactly where they're going to meet. It's always going to be in a very sensible location that's on the way from your gate on the way to baggage claim. But please do check the blog, as it will provide some of those instructions. Thanks for the good tip, Betsy. Okay, and another one is I did drop in the chat actually
if you want to see that, we are going to be emailing out information about leader teams to all families starting later this week. But if you want to take a sneak peek at who your leaders are tentatively scheduled to be, as Remy mentioned, go to the Bold Earth website, click on trip leaders, and then meet your trip leaders. Whole big list of trip leaders broken down by which trip they're going to be leading. But you also get an email either Thursday or Friday. Awesome. Great question here. Do I get to see who's on my trip beforehand? And also, is Bold Earth going to do a Zoom session for the trip or connect the students via social media so they can connect? This seems like a really obvious win. We're all about connection, forming relationships. Why not get that started early? But as we found out over our 46 years of doing this, there actually are some good reasons why not to do that. And I think we've settled pretty emphatically that we don't like doing that. And here are the reasons why. For most Bold Earth trips, even though we're going to have a good few returners, especially on our older trips, most of the time people don't know very many people, if anyone at all. Most of our new students are coming, the vast majority are coming alone without knowing anybody. And when everyone lands and gets, we have this kind of really unique perishable moment where everybody is really starting off on a similar playing field. In the past, when we've released rosters with people's names, tried to connect people, given contact information, what we've almost always found is that people have managed to connect beforehand. Some don't. Maybe they don't have social media. They're not as proactive with things like that. Thanks, Remy. If my internet keeps glitching, just let me know. We really find that it's best to have this be, first impressions to be very real, organic, natural, and filtered through the lens of social media. People have come with mistaken impressions of who's going to be, a certain way versus not. And we really find it really lends itself to a better community and a better trip experience. I do understand that that doesn't always ease people's anxieties about who they're going to be with, but I promise you it makes for a better trip and a better experience. So thanks everyone for your understanding about that. Awesome. How will I take pictures without my phone? Great question. And we're so passionate about our tech-free policy, but really, really, really feel strongly, the real bummer about it is everyone uses their phone as a camera. I totally understand. I do the same thing. So unfortunately, you won't be able to use your phone as a camera, but bring things. Actually, someone had a great suggestion about Polaroids. Love Polaroids. Those have made a comeback, makes me feel younger. But GoPros are great. Digital cameras are great. Your Bold Earth trip leaders will publish them, typically about 100 or so per trip. But please keep in mind they're running the trip, not professionals, so they won't be thousands of photos or drones or high def footage or anything like that. But we do publish a little bit of album, and it's really nice. Awesome. Someone asked this really great question about what are our expectations of our new students. You know what? Hold on one second. I'm actually gonna just switch locations really quick. Apologies about that, y'all. Have really fast internet here, but it only goes out when I'm counting on it not to. Excellent. What are our expectations of our new students or of our students? That's a really insightful question because we usually are focused on, what should you expect out of your Bold Earth experience? But the truth is, as I mentioned earlier, this is a really interactive thing. It's not a roller coaster ride. It's not something you just strap in and, have it done to you. It is an interactive experience that we create together, and everybody kind of needs to be pulling in the same direction here. So we do have some expectations of all of our new students. One is that you come with a great attitude. So much of your experience is going to be defined by that. And we need everyone to come willing to have fun, excited to make friends. The other expectation is that everybody comes and is, willing to connect with everybody. We know that in a group of 10 to 13 students, not everybody is going to be best friends with everyone. That's never our expectation. But our expectation is that everybody is friendly with everyone is inclusive of everyone, and everyone is kind. That's a big part of the Bold Earth culture, is inclusion and kindness. So that's a huge expectation that we have and hold for everybody. Another expectation is, look, everybody has bad days. Nobody expects you to be your best self every single day. But we do ask that people try to have a good, positive attitude, because, part of the Bold Earth experience is some level of adversity. And you'd be amazed how much easier it is to move through challenges together when people, have a positive attitude, even if it's just a positive spin and you're not feeling it 100%. And I think one really big one here too is, I mentioned this earlier when I was talking about safety and risk management, is, this is an interactive experience and we need everyone's help to have a safe experience for everyone. So we really need our new student, or all of our students, to be willing to play by the rules. And our trip leaders, are there almost all the time, but I'll talk about this later, but they have to sleep and step away sometimes. And so we do have to have the confidence in all of our students that they're gonna stay in their tents at night, follow the rules, and things like that. So those are some expectations of new students, or of students. Anything else to add, Remy?
No, I think that's great. Sorry, I'm looking for this duffel bag that a lot of people are asking about.
Oh, gotcha.
To send along. But no, I don't have anything to add there.
Fantastic. Awesome. A few other ones. How to prepare physically for your trip and the importance of doing so. Yeah, this is really key. And so kind of a bit of a nuanced topic, because people ask a lot of times, yeah, how hard is this trip? How hard is the Pacific Northwest trip? That's tough to answer, because challenge is always subjective. Here's what we always say, and I think this is a good guide, is that to be successful on a Bold Earth trip, you do not need to be an elite athlete. This is not a competitive program. It's not necessarily a skills development program. At our heart, we're a summer camp. We're out here to have fun and challenge ourselves. That being said, everyone should count on coming, in good physical condition. The people ask how much hiking is going to be on the trip. It's a little variable by trip and per day. Typically, if you're on a hiking day, it shouldn't exceed about 10 miles. We're not backpacking, so you're not, having anything really, really big on your back. But we're not going to leave folks behind or anything like that. But we do ask that people come in good physical condition. If you're already playing sports, probably don't need to go hit the gym to prepare for your Bold Earth trip. But if you're not, and you're not in great shape, that's totally fine. You don't need to be in the, tip-top physical condition, but we want you in good physical condition, because even though we want to challenge you, we want you to have fun. We don't want you to live in the challenge zone the whole trip. Awesome. Remy, just so everyone does not get sick of the sound of my voice, do you want to answer a few questions that you have gotten in the question inbox and some of the pre-existing ones as well?
Sure, I'm catching up. Let me take a look. Did you have one that you felt like you wanted to answer and I can jump in and do it?
I sure did, Remy. I sure did.
I thought
awesome. I have a few. Let's start off with, should students bring snacks of their own?
Oh, great question. I would say for their travel days, you can send them with some snacks, but we will always provide all the snacks that students need, and we try to get things that everyone likes. So I always ask my students, within reason, what are some snacks that you'll eat? And we are always loading up on snacks. So they do not need to bring their own. If there's something special that they really like a special granola bar that they want to bring as, a little comfort from home for the beginning of the trip, they can, but we will provide snacks.
All right, Remy, I'm going to keep going with a few more.
Yeah,
this is your favorite. Do we send money and credit cards with students? How much and what would they spend money on during the trip?
That's a great question. So we recommend between $75 and $100 of spending money per week. It's not required that students bring spending money. Sometimes, we'll end up in a little general store and they have stickers that they want to buy. Sometimes students want to buy personal snacks or something on a food shop. And again, they don't need to, but they can. And another thing that people will bring money for is baggage fees. So a lot of the times our bags are not included, and on their way home, there might be a fee for their bag. Sometimes airlines don't accept cash. I'm finding more and more that that is the case. So if your kids do have a debit card or can have access to a preloaded debit card, that's super helpful to send them with for things like baggage fees. But yeah, there's not a ton of opportunities to spend money. Boulder's definitely not a shopping trip, but I have found that when stickers are around and magnets, kids definitely like to jump at the opportunity to take that little memory home with them. Do you have anything to add there, Josh?
I do not. That was well covered, but I got another one. Can you talk a little bit more about laundry on trips?
Yeah, so we do laundry, I would say 1 to 2 times per trip. It ends up being, 7 to 10 days. It kind of depends on what our trip itinerary looks like. And laundry days are pretty fun. We all go to a laundromat together. Boulder Earth covers the expense of that, and we'll get soap and teach the kids how to use the machines, which they always get a real kick out of. And we ask to bring like a little dirty laundry bag so they can separate their stuff, and we'll do a bunch of big loads at laundromats together. Do you have anything to add there, Josh?
Knocked it out of the park. Knocked it out of the park. I can jump in here as well. Fantastic. So somebody asked, and I think this is a really good question, what does supervision look like on a Boulder Earth trip? And we think about this all the time. It's part of our risk management plan, but it's also really part of the student experience, because this is a balance. We sometimes have students that are older. We have a lot of really mature folks. And like I mentioned earlier in this question answer session, we make certain promises around the safety of our students, and we have a duty of care. So it's something we take really, really seriously. So there's two types of supervision that's offered or provided at Boulder. One is direct and one is indirect. There's a lot of direct supervision. We don't always think of it that way because we're just hanging out with our students. We do pretty much everything together. We cook together. We sleep in the same, campground area together. We do all of our activities. We drive together. Boulder Earth is not an independent experience in that sense. Even though students have a lot of responsibility, agency, and autonomy, it's in the context of this greater adventure. That being said, there are situations where we offer indirect supervision instead. A good example is, giving people a little bit of time in town. We don't do that very often, but usually once on a trip, if we're going to a place, for example, in Hawaii, a small town of Kona, really unique, we'll give students, an hour in town with a few buddies. We always have a buddy system in a specific area with some parameters where trip leaders always know where students are, and students always know where our trip leaders are. Another example of that is bedtime. And this is something that's really important because Boulder's trip leaders work really, really hard, but they're still people and they need to rest in order to drive safely, be sane, have fun, and be great role models. So our trip leaders are indirectly supervising while asleep. So in the context of a Boulder Earth domestic trip where we're all camping together, we're all going to be in one, campground area. The trip leaders will generally be kind of in the middle where they can be around and accessible in case a student needs anything. And we're all camping in relatively close quarters. But please know, we're not an eyes-on program. So that's an area of our supervision. We're not like a wilderness therapy program, for example, where staff always have to have eyes on students and there's direct supervision at all times. We do need to trust and do trust our students that when we go to bed, they're going to be in their tents unless they're going to the bathroom or there's an emergency. This is the kind of stuff when it comes to risk management, I'm also always happy to have one-on-one conversations about. We put a lot of thought into it. We don't want to baby our students, but also, we want to be able to honor the promises we make to families about safety on Boulder Earth trips as well. Anything to add to that, Remy? I know it's kind of a big topic.
Yeah, no, I think you covered it. That was great.
Awesome. This is one that's come up a lot more. Would Crocs work for a heeled strap sandal for trips like, California, for example, or Colorado? The easy answer is no, not really. Crocs are amazing, and they do have a strap, but it's not really a strap. When you talk about a strap sandal for activities like whitewater rafting, it's something that you can wear while in the water, and it's not going to float off your foot. So a sandal like a Teva or a Croc or Keens, those are going to be perfect for activities like rafting or even going to the beach, and they're not in danger of just floating off if you jump into the water. So if we're asking for like a heeled or strap sandal, it's not referring to a Croc. Crocs are great, and you can bring those as well as like a camp shoe or going to the beach, but they're not great for the water. And as a side note, I just want to say, and I said this in the last webinar, I've been a huge fan of Crocs for almost 15 years, and I liked them before they were cool. And now everybody likes them, but I was definitely on the front end of that trend for once. So Remy can back me up on that.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Remy, another topic of conversation.
I see that I'd love to answer. Don't mind.
Yeah, please.
I've seen a couple questions about transporting our duffel bags and our gear, and some people have mentioned hiking days. So I mentioned this briefly, but we don't backpack on any of our trips. We have a big trailer that we will attach to our 15-passenger van that will go everywhere we go on our moving days. So we try to leave that behind for ease on days where we're just going to do a day hike. But when we're moving campsites, we'll always just load up our trailer with all of our gear, and the extent of carrying the duffel bag will be from the campsite to the trailer. So it won't be anything too strenuous, hopefully. Josh, do you have anything to add there?
No, that's a good clarification, because we have hiking on all Boulder Earth trips and we talk about duffels and backpacks. It's easy for that to get lost. So thanks for that clarification. Awesome. Let's see, a few other things. Someone asked, this is a good question. I know a lot of our students love music. We love music at Boulder Earth. We're generally listening to music in the van. People ask, can I bring headphones for hiking days or Bluetooth speakers? We ask no. We know that sometimes that's a way people kind of disconnect. But when we're in the van together or things like that, we don't want people to take themselves out of the group experience. Sometimes the trip leaders will bring a group speaker and we can listen to that at the campground together, but we don't want to have like 10 different Bluetooth speakers that are all playing things. And also most people use their phones to play music on those as well. So not quite as effective. And thank you for clarifying that. That goes for things like MP3 players, which I know are not as common these days. Other electronic devices like that, we don't really want on the trips. Awesome. Go for it, Remy.
That topic. I saw a question about what happens with students' phones when they get to the airport. So we will have your child call you when they arrive in our hands to say, I made it safely. I'm going to pass my phone over now. The trip leaders will collect the phones and hold on to them throughout the trip. We keep them in a really safe place. And we'll just have them until we give them back to the kids, either for calls home or at the end of the trip. Anything to add there, Josh?
Yeah, that's a great question. I saw a question about COVID testing, actually, because in the past we had done pre-trip COVID testing and things like that. The easy answer is we are not doing any of that. We are not requiring a pre-trip COVID test. And the truth is we're really managing on a symptom basis here. So if we don't want folks to come unhealthy, COVID or otherwise. So if someone has the flu or a big cold or COVID, we're going to ask that they don't join the trip right away, because that could make the rest of the folks unhealthy. Likewise, if someone gets sick on the trip, we are going to do certain measures to make sure that illness doesn't spread, regardless of what it is. So even if it's just a cold, we'll probably have that person mask up in, when it comes to enclosed, settings, which we don't have as much of on a domestic camping trip. But in areas like the van, if there is a potential illness going around, we might have folks wear masks only in those circumstances, because whether it's COVID, the cough, or the flu, being sick can kind of put a damper on your experience. If we have students that are really ill, they may do things like sleep in their own tents. If we have folks that are ill, we may have to quarantine them, whether it's the flu or COVID. We don't want that spread. If we take folks to a healthcare clinic who are sick, they may be tested for COVID, and we'll respond accordingly. But we won't do any kind of mass testing. We can test folks if we feel it's relevant and necessary, but we are mostly managing symptoms here and not being really proactive with things like testing at this stage. Any questions about that, feel free to drop in the questions inbox. Thank you for that. Awesome. Remy, what other questions are you seeing here that you think still need to be answered?
Yeah, good question. I'm sorting through.
I'll throw in one while you look for some of the last questions. You know, where do our students come from? It's a great question. And, you know, we've been doing this since 1976, so a very long time. I'm not going to say this is by design, but something we love about Bold Earth is that we're not a program that pulls regionally, meaning we're not based in the Southeast and have mostly kids from the Southeast or kids from the Northeast or California. Bold Earth kids come from all over the place, typically in a summer, about 30 different states and 10 to 15 or more different countries. Obviously, they're small groups, so not every group looks quite that way. But we have a really good diversity of where folks are coming from, and it makes for a really unique trip. And yes, we do get more folks from states like New York or California than we do from, you know, Oklahoma, but we have students from all over the country, and that's something that we really, really love. And we do have international students. Some programs have, you know, 2 or even 3 international students. That's a huge part of Bold Earth and a really cool experience, especially for our US-based students. It's really awesome. We've had some incredible stories about people, you know, a bunch of kids from trips visiting Paris and London and places like that. Really, really awesome. I have 1 or 2 more, Remy, but what else do you have?
I noticed someone asked about typical wake up time. That will kind of depend on what activities your groups are doing that day. I would say on average, we wake up around 7 a.m. Sometimes it's closer to 6. Sometimes we get to sleep in a little bit, maybe 7:30. But with that question, they asked if they could go on a early morning run or workout. And I will just say it's a good thing to know. Your trip leaders will set this expectation when you're with them, but we're not going to have students leaving the campground alone in the morning when other folks are asleep. So if you want to wake up and do like a little ab workout or some sort of circuit training with your water bottle in the campsite, that's probably something you can arrange with your trip leader, but we're not going to have folks run in and out of camp without supervision.
Yeah, and that's just a safety thing. We're going to a lot of different places. And also, while we do have some ambitious folks who have done some cool and organized some cool morning workouts for folks, generally, even our more athletic students find they're getting plenty of activity at Bold Earth, and they don't necessarily feel the need to supplement it. I know we have some very athletic students who are worried about losing shape, but really, I think most have found that has not come to pass in a positive way for them. Awesome. I have an interesting question here. You know, someone asked is, you know, talking about sleeping mats, you know, we asking if it's possible to send things directly to the camp. Unfortunately not, because we're not a residential summer camp, we don't have just one facility. We do not have a way to receive shipments from folks for the trip. So that is actually true for care packages. Unfortunately, we used to do that and have them sent to various post offices. And what we found is there ended up being a lot of Bold Earth intended packages that didn't come on time and ended up floating around there in places like Hawaii and California. So we just found it was best to not do that. And likewise, unfortunately, we're not able to. The question was about sleeping mats, saying we have a foam egg crate style one. Those are great. And again, I think it really does come down to more convenient to have something you could just spread out like a foam, you know, mattress and lie on. Obviously, you're going to take a small haircut when it comes to comfort versus a, you know, more high-tech air mattress like a Neo Air or a Thermarest or Big Agnes, for example. Would you agree with that, Remy?
Yeah, I would.
Awesome. I know we're nearing the end of our webinar here. Let's see. I did have, go for it.
I was just gonna say, I saw someone asked if tents are separated by gender, and the answer is yes. And I don't know if you want to add anything there, Josh. That's my simple answer.
Awesome. No, I think that's really great. Let's see. Here we go. Someone asked about mosquito repellent. While we do have some mosquito repellent and sunscreen, you should also feel free to bring your own. There's a lot of cool natural ones that are out there. and I don't love mosquito repellent. I am more of a cover up person. I don't really like the feeling of it. That being said, when it does get really buggy in certain places, it can be really great. The truth is, and I might get some pushback on this, when there's a lot of mosquitoes, DEET is really the one thing that works really, really well. I still would pack the natural ones. I think they can be effective, but for really, really buggy places, DEET is very effective. The downside is it's really gross. You want to be careful, even if it's in the plastic spray bottle. I would always put it in an additional Ziploc bag. I've certainly had experiences where it leaked on my stuff. It's not super fun. But for the most part, people don't wear a ton of bug spray. Typically, when it's in the evening time and it comes to the witching hour, which is typically that time where the mosquitoes really come out, we have folks usually cover up first and then put on stuff.
Yeah. I've seen a couple questions about duffel bag sizes, and some people are asking if it's okay to have a duffel more than 70 liters. I will say, you know, as long as your child can carry it, I have a 70-liter duffel, and when I fill it to the brim, it's pretty packed and pretty heavy. So if you get a 100-liter duffel and fill it up and it becomes too heavy to carry, that's not super helpful. So I would say 70 usually can accommodate most of the things. And if you are going to get a bigger duffel, just be mindful that that means potentially more stuff coming with you.
Yep, that makes sense. That makes sense. Awesome. There are a few more, so I'm going to keep running on these, you know, and I'm sorry because Remy and I are taking turns answering questions and also in the questions inbox. So I'm sorry if this has already been covered. Someone asks, is an 85-liter duffel too big? It says 70. We say 70 is a good baseline. It can be up to 100, especially if you already have one. If you have a 95-liter duffel bag, don't buy a 71. That's fine. We have sometimes found when we say just a duffel bag, seen students bring duffel bags so big I actually didn't know that they made duffel bags that big, and that can just be a nuisance for them and in the trailer as well. So we try to set it at a moderate size. So 70 to about 100 liters is totally fine. Someone asked, what are our thoughts on Fitbits and Apple Watches? Great question. I love that. Fitbits are really cool. Apple Watches are also really cool. However, they are a little too internet connected for our tech-free mindset. So we do ask that Apple Watches are going to go in the same place as cell phones. Fitbits are totally fine, and I'm at risk of dating myself here and not knowing exactly what device can do what. But as a general rule, we ask that things that connect to the internet and can do cool internet stuff don't have a great place on our trip, as we're trying to take a break from that. E-readers, not connected to the internet, without data plans, not being able to like browse the internet, for example, those are fine. I don't recommend them. They have a higher likelihood of getting damaged. It can be harder to keep them charged. Love a good old book. And also, we're pretty busy at Boulder, so I wouldn't worry about filling too much excess time. But people do ask about e-readers. Excellent. Remy, do you want to answer the question about camp chair required or just recommended?
I saw that. It's recommended, and I really recommend it. I think students will be sad if they don't have a chair. We do lots of sitting on the ground in a circle together for extended amounts of time when we're doing our evening programming, which is always the best part of the day in my opinion. So I highly recommend getting a Crazy Creek, and there are affordable options. Yeah, it's recommended, and it's a strong recommendation.
It's a strong recommendation. And, you know, we ask that camp chairs aren't traditional chairs. So they don't have legs and things like that. We like to all kind of be on the same level. Crazy Creeks are light. They fold up in your duffel bag. They're easy in the trailer, and are also really affordable, typically anywhere from, you know, $25 to $50. And they're really comfortable too. But yeah, we do end up on the ground a lot in a good way. And I think they're really nice to have, not a big ticket item. Awesome.
Josh,
So
question. Sorry, were you going to add anything?
Go for it.
I saw another question that I wanted to answer. Someone mentioned being concerned about not being able to do all the hiking that we have planned, and asked if there was an option to ride in the van. And I would say that we're a team when we come together, and we stay as a group, and we will sooner adjust our plan to accommodate the group's needs than we would separate someone from the group. So we are dynamic. Our trip leaders know how to make changes, and we always say we want to give a healthy, reasonable challenge. We don't want to traumatize anyone. So if we find that we've planned a hike that just feels pretty inaccessible for our group, we're going to adjust, because in addition to being challenged, we want people to have a really good time. So if it's looking like someone's not going to be able to do the hike that we have planned, we always have backup plans. And typically on our days that we're hiking, that's all we have to do that day. So we take our time, we take tons of breaks. I usually set a timer every 15 minutes when I'm hiking with a group of kids to take a sip of water and take a breather. So it sounds like a lot of miles, but it's surprising how much you can accomplish when all you have to do that day is walk. And, if you're stopping and playing games along the way and having snack breaks and water breaks, it tends to be more accessible than it sounds like on paper.
Yeah, I would actually love to add on that, because I think it's a really excellent question in a lot of ways, because we get this a lot for folks who are interested. It's like, hey, my kid, folks are really excited to attend, but they're, if they just don't want to do something, can they just sit out? And that's a little bit of a nuanced question, because, Remy really hit this on the head. Boulder Earth is a team experience, and we do believe in challenge by choice. And the expectation is that everyone does try everything and challenge themselves. And we all have different thresholds. Hiking is one thing, and activities like rock climbing are a perfect example. Some students will spend the whole day climbing and barely get off the rope. And for some folks are really scared of heights. I know I used to be really scared of heights, and my personal summit was getting 5 feet above the ground, right? And that's okay too. We challenged ourselves, we hit the threshold, we pushed just a little bit more and got to our personal summit for the day. But what we don't want is like a opt-in, opt-out, right? Where half the group is going to go hiking, half the group opts out for the day. We want to do everything as a team, and we do want folks to challenge themselves as part of the experience. And please have trust and faith that we will look after, your physical and emotional safety during these activities too. Awesome. Remy, any of the last questions that you see here?
There's so many I could answer. I do know we're coming to the end. Did you have any that were popping out to you?
Just a couple really quick ones. What would free time, downtime look like? Great question. Boulder Earth is busy. As you can see, you're on a 14 or 18-day trip with us, even 21 days. Look at the incredible amount of locations we visit and all the cool things we get to do. So Boulder Earth is busy. We have a lot to do. But yeah, we do want to give a little bit of relaxed time. So downtime is typically us hanging out at camp, doing things like playing cards, hanging out, just talking to each other. Sometimes we play organized games, but a lot of times we just really enjoy each other's company, or we hang out around the fire, right? So we want to give people time to just relax. Some people may peel off to other areas of the camp and, read a book in their free time. But a lot of times people are wondering if they have a lot of time to kill. And the easy answer is generally not. We're kind of always doing stuff. And yes, of course, as the trip goes on too, and our community bonds, we also want to provide time for us all to enjoy each other's company. But it's not in the form of excessive downtime. It's typically just hangout time to rest and relax and enjoy each other's company and friendship. Awesome. Other quick questions: water bottle versus Camelback. Great question. Camelback with water bladder, there's HydroPack, other variations on this. I will say that if you want to bring one of those are great. They're really awesome, especially for hiking. Please bring at least one hard physical water bottle, plastic or otherwise, because Camelbacks have a high fail rate in comparison to a regular water bottle. So one of those and one water bottle is perfect and very good to go. Awesome.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Can people bring their own snorkel gear question? The short answer is they don't need to. We have our outfitters provide gear. They super sanitize everything that we use. And we will also have some Bold Earth snorkel gear that we can have, you know, for some free days on the beach, and we will also sanitize those. So there's no reason for people to bring their own snorkel gear. I would say that they're pretty covered between our outfitters and our gear. Would you agree with that, Josh?
That's correct. Yeah, students never have to bring any kind of specialized activity equipment that's off the packing list. And honestly, it's usually just not worth it. If you have a special need or something, or it's specially formatted to you, or you have a prescription lens mask, by all means, of course, we would never stop you on that. Awesome. Go for it.
I was just going to answer one more quick one. I'm also seeing someone ask if they can bring a ball or a frisbee. We will also have all that stuff. We have activity bags that we take on our trips with us. I think, like Josh said, if you have something really special that you feel really connected to that you want to bring, that's okay. But we will definitely have things like that that folks can use on the trips.
Excellent. Fantastic. I think that is pretty much it. And I know we're running a little over on time. Thank you to everyone who's born with us. We are also accessible, for additional questions by email or phone call. We may try to follow up with some folks via email about some really nitty-gritty trip-specific questions. But thank you all for your time and attention. We are so excited for summer. As Ruwent mentioned, we're going to be leaving for staff training soon to hang out with your incredible trip leaders. Please don't hesitate to ask us any questions before then. Thank you all. Have a wonderful night, and we're very excited to see you all this summer. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.